1A. Welcome to OLC40, Term 1A, Class 1 Study Guide. Okay, this is the introduction, and we're going to be, I don't know if we'll get to the nouns and the basic sentences today. Sorry, I just looked at this. Just realized that's a little bit off. There we go. All right, welcome back. I hope you had a good summer. This is just kind of a quick all the ways to contact me. If you've been a student of mine before, you know this, and I will go over these a little bit later. If you want to call and talk to me while I'm in the studio broadcasting, the number is 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017. Keep in mind that when you do that, you will also be on the air on the radio, and when I save it, it will also be on YouTube. Okay, I just want people to be aware of that so no one's being recorded without their permission. If you want to talk to me when I'm not on the air, you call the office, 1-800-667-3703. My toll-free number is extension 2211. My main email is jillian.percy@nnec.on.ca. My alternate email is jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. And my Facebook is capital G, capital P-E-R-C-Y, space, capital W-A-H-S-A. And then there are two different YouTube channels that you can see classes on. One is my G. Percy WASA channel, and the other one is the WASA Distance Education Center YouTube channel. There's little quick pictures of both of them there. I'll come out and talk about those a little bit later on. So this has been revised just this last week or two, so there's a really good chance that you don't have the most recent version, and that's okay. A lot of changes are minor. The big change would be Unit 1. However, I will continue to accept last year's Unit 1 for this entire year. I just think that this newer version is a better version, and I really encourage you, if you are just starting out, to contact me. I can easily email you the entire package. The big change for this year will be that we're not going to be doing Jimmy Comes Home if you are doing the new version of the course. If you are doing last year's version of the course, you will still need Jimmy Comes Home, okay? So this is the study guide, and you can see in the front it has all my information. So if you're ever stuck and can't remember things, just go here real quick and you can find all my stuff. All right, so this is the OLC40 course. This one is designed to help you acquire and demonstrate the cross-curricular literacy skills that are evaluated by the Ontario Secondary School Literacy Test, the OSSLT. That is normally taken in the end of grade 9. However, for adults who are going back to school, they don't have to take the test, they can take this course instead. However, it does need to be successfully completed. It can also count as a full credit in English, so I have a lot of students who use it as their grade 12 credit, which is totally fine. Throughout the lessons, you will develop the skills necessary to improve your English grammar and your writing ability. Course materials. Again, for the previous year, you would have gotten Units 1 to 4 and the novel Jimmy Comes Home. You can submit assignments to me or to the DEC in your community. Please contact me if you don't feel like you have the right items. This year there is no novel study. I'm just doing a lot of different short stories and textbook articles and newspapers, and it's all kind of embedded in the course, because I know I was having some people having problems where they were losing bits and pieces of material, and it was frustrating to them, so we've kind of switched to this. So evaluation for the course. Basically all the units 1 to 4 add up to 70% of your total grade. And then there is a portfolio project, which counts for about 10% of your overall grade. And then there's a final, well, it's no longer an exam, it's more of a culminating activity, and that's worth about 20% of your grade. At the end of each week, make sure that you send in all the work you've completed. Your assignments should be sent in as soon as you get them done. You do not have to wait until you've completed a whole lesson or unit. Now, part of that is because I've changed how things done. Before there were like 4 or 5 assignments throughout each lesson, but I found that sometimes people were skipping the ones that were the most important part that they needed. So now I've created kind of like a key question at the end of each lesson that really is mandatory. So hopefully that will work better for people understanding what needs to get done. It is really, really important that I have a contact number and preferably an email where I can reach you, leave a message, or return materials. Occasionally, we get people who send in their application and for some reason forget to include any way for us to contact them. And then I can't let you know if there's a problem. I can't give you your marks. It just becomes kind of an issue. So if we don't have a way to contact you, please try and give us a phone call right away so that I can put that into your file. Okay. So, okay, this particular course is only offered once this year. It's going to run from September 2nd to October 31st. It runs Monday to Thursday. There's no classes on Friday. And then it will generally run from 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 5 o'clock p.m. Every now and again, there may be a day where I'm away, in which case I either will record it ahead of time and it will be played but no one will be live, or if I haven't had a chance to do that, then on Friday I will post the class and you'll be able to do it there. At any point in time, you are always able to do the independent learning. And if you are signed up for the Radio Zoom course but you don't finish before the Radio Zoom ends, don't worry about it. Just let us know that you want to continue. And also, sometimes people have the idea that if you're in the independent learning, you can't watch the Radio Zoom. That's not the case, right? It's just for some people, they find it really, really helpful to watch the classes. Other people never watch the classes, and then some people will watch like, oh, I'm having trouble with this one assignment, so I'm going to watch the class for that one assignment. And that's fine, whatever works for you, okay? All right, this is the tentative schedule over the next 9 weeks. And I say tentative because things happen. People get sick, or something takes me a little longer to teach than I think. Basically, the first 2 weeks, this week and next week, we'll be covering Unit 1. Then week 3 and 4, I'll be working on Unit 2. Weeks 5 and 6, Unit 3. Weeks 7 and 8, Unit 4. And then week 9, I'll be doing review. And we'll talk about the portfolio and how to prep for doing the culminating activity. Okay? So, if you are working independently, especially if this is your first course that you've been taking for a long time, it's really important to start off organized, okay? Read through the study guide to make sure you understand what the course is about. Contact me as soon as you get your materials. Make a plan. We're going to talk more about how to plan your workout in Lesson 3, but you can always skip ahead and do that first if you want to. If there's any websites listed in a lesson, make sure to check it out and set your own goals for when you can finish assignment. It doesn't matter if you don't meet the goal, but sometimes what happens is people kind of think, oh, I'll get to that later, and all of a sudden it's June and they're like, oh, wait, whoa, what happened? So it's a better idea to kind of have like a little calendar, put a little, number on when you're planning to finish each unit or each lesson. I also, if you're doing your stuff by paper, I strongly suggest keeping your assignments in a binder or a folder as you go along. You can get those kind of things at the dollar store if you need to, and you're going to need your assignments to complete the final portfolio. So don't throw your stuff out when you get it back. Hang on to it. Also, sometimes people aren't happy with their grade, so they revise it, fix it, and then resubmit it to raise their grade. Okay? There are a lot of students in this course. This is a course that is kind of what I consider a bottleneck course, in which that it is a required course if you haven't done the literacy test, and a lot of my students have not done the literacy test. Because of that, like I know last year by the end of the year, I had about 230 students. When that happens, I'm not going to get assignments marked on the same day. It just isn't going to happen. Especially if you hand me in 20 assignments at once, okay? If you hand me in only like an assignment or two at a time, it is so much easier for me to get it marked quickly and get it back to you rather than handing me in an entire unit. Because if you hand me in an entire unit, I need at least 2 or 3 hours to mark it, and that means I've got to wait till I've got 2 or 3 hours to do that. So it takes a lot longer, okay? Now, this is not as big a problem right now, but just for those who might be working on this in May or June, don't hand me in an entire course the day before grad. There will be no way for me to get it marked in time. There's just way too much going on that last little bit in June. if too many students try and hand it in at once, I just physically am not capable of marking that much stuff at once. Now, if throughout the year you have an urgent deadline for a specific reason, that's fine, but let me know ahead of time and hand things in as quickly as you get them finished rather than saving everything up. So maybe you've got a scholarship you're applying for, or you're trying to get into college, or you've got a court date, or you're about to do some surgery. Whatever's going on, just let me know, and then I can kind of work with you and keep on top of that. If you are in the Radio Zoom course, you would be surprised how quickly those 9 weeks fly by. So this is just kind of a rough idea. By week 3, all of week 1 should be finished and handed in to me. By week 6, all of unit 2 should be finished and handed in to me. By week 8, all of unit 3 should be handed in to me. And week 9, you want to finish up unit 4 and the culminating. It is tight, especially if you work full time. Okay. Now, if you're doing this course as an independent study, obviously you can set your own schedule. And if you don't get finished in time, we simply enroll you the next term or even the next year. That happens all the time. This was talking about the course being offered in the summertime, which it was. And I won't say it always is going to be, but it's likely to be just because it's a course that so many people need. We've talked about that. Oh yeah, you can go to lesson 3 if you want to look at how to set up a schedule for yourself, okay? All right. Now, some people have a hard time setting up a possible schedule for yourself. So I did kind of yank this out of lesson 3 just to kind of walk you through it. Let's say you're going to try and finish a lesson a week. So if you started right now and say by Friday you handed me in lesson 1, then you would be finished by about January the 4th. Okay? This is assuming that you worked through the Christmas break, by the way. But let's say you want to finish things a little faster, so you're going to finish 2 lessons a week. Okay, well then you'd be finished by about the 2nd week in November. Okay? So this is just kind of a rough outline of how long things will take. The other thing to keep in mind is some lessons are a little bit quicker than others, depending. The later on in the course it gets, the last 4 or 5 lessons are pretty meaty, and they have a lot of work to do. So these ones at the beginning are going to go a lot faster. Okay, this just goes through all the different ways to contact me. Student work. Generally, we don't send assignments to me directly. You send it to student work at nnec.on.ca. And the reason for that is multiple reasons. Well, actually, one, if I'm sick, someone still receives your work. If I quit or got fired, someone else would still have access to your work. The other thing is, if you say didn't finish this course next year and you wanted to do it, the year after or even a few years down the road, we still have access to that for years and years. And I can yank it up and see what work you did. And so could another teacher if another teacher was teaching this course. But if it goes only to my email, then if something happened to me, no one else can access it. And sometimes people don't keep a copy and all of a sudden they've lost all that hard work. So you can include me in the email if you want to. That's totally fine. Then it kind of gives me a heads up that something's been handed in just in case. But always make sure it goes to that main email because that is just the most reliable way to make sure your work is preserved. Also, always make sure it's got your first, your last name, and your community on it. And the reason is sometimes we have students that have the same first and last name, and then we check out the community. Like, oh, okay, this is the Dawn that lives in Casablanca compared to the Dawn that lives in Lac Seul. I need to know that sometimes. The course number and the assignment number, okay? If you're handing me in a writing assignment, label if it's the rough draft or the final draft because they get marked differently and they count for a different level of marks. So you don't want me just guessing, all right? Okay, this kind of walks through how to get your NNEC Google email. Once you register with us as a student, you automatically have access to the G Suite account. And the reason for this is because it gives students an easy way to have access to like word processing programs like Google Docs or Excel programs for math. For some of my courses, we use Google Slides. So it's really, really important. The other thing is sometimes students share their documents with me from one Google account to another. That's not possible if you're using a non-Google account. Now, if you already have another Gmail that you're using and that's working for you, that's fine. It's not a make or break kind of thing, but just so you know what's going on. Um, Email addresses are always set up the same way. First name dot last name, the month you were born, and the date you were born, then at nnecschools.org. Okay, so here's an example of another teacher. The initial password for everybody is WASA student. Go in right away and change it to something that's less well known. This talks about who you can contact. Katie Birch is no longer with us. You can probably contact me and I can get things kind of arranged. I'm still figuring that stuff out, but I'm sure we will get it worked out. If you're not used to using Google, you would click the little waffle thing and then see this little tiny blue icon. That is Google Docs. And if you're wanting to do your assignments on the computer, Google Docs is a great way to do it. And like I said, it's free if you're one of our students. If you have, let's see, another word processing program like MS Word, or you're on a Mac, that's just fine too. It doesn't matter to me how you do it. And you are also welcome to hand everything in handwritten, but I know some people prefer to do computer work. And for some of the writing assignments, doing it on the computer is a little bit easier. Okay, so once you click on that, this is what will come up. And generally you would click on the blank document and it will start you on a whole fresh new document. And then this is what it will look like. And there's a bunch of toolbars up here. Hopefully you have used Google Docs before. I know people who've been in school the last 10 years probably have, but some of my students haven't been in school for a while. So if you haven't, feel free to call me up and I can walk you through it. We could do a Facebook call. I'm going to kind of walk you through a few things just kind of quickly. Let me see if I can pull this up. I think I can. Okay. I'm hoping that you can't see this little black line. It's kind of up here. There we go. Let me see. Okay. So in Google Docs, here's the file. You can make a copy, you can share it, you can email it with me. Downloading it and then emailing it is probably best. If you want to type, you can just start anywhere. It'll just let you go on typing, right? You can start anywhere. Now, let's say you don't like that font. Okay, great. I'm going to select it, highlight it, go up here, and I can change the font to something different. Now, obviously, you wouldn't use that to send me an essay. I wouldn't be able to read it. But Arial is really common. Calibre is common. Verdana is common. Use whatever you like, but try to make sure it's legible, okay? You can also make it bigger. I sometimes do that because my eyes are not the best, and so I just make it bigger, and then I can read it. For some assignments, if it's saying do a page and a half, though, it's assuming that you're at a 12. So you can't make it like 20 and then go, well, it is a page and a half. I'm going for the standard 12 for that. B stands for bold. It means I can make a word darker, like that. The I stands for italicized, which basically means the letters kind of slant over, right? And the U stands for underlining, and I hit that in underline. If I hit the A with the color, I could change the color to red or blue or really any color I want to. It doesn't matter. This little thing is a highlighter. There's times where that might be helpful. Oh, didn't do it. Hang on a sec. You can do it two ways. You can do, oh, hang on. There we go. All right, I can select it and then hit the highlighter. Also, is this one? Well, let me do it that way. No, okay. There's sometimes one where I can just put it in pen mode and I can do it as I go along, but it won't let me. A lot of this kind of stuff you're not going to need to worry about. Here you can make little bullet lists. Here are numbered lists. Here I can decrease my indent that way. Here I can increase my indent that way. Format, I can change paragraph styles, columns. You don't need to worry about most of these things unless you're doing something like a resume. Okay, so that's just kind of a quick run through. And if you live in town, you're welcome to drop by. I'd be happy to kind of walk you through things. Hang on, let me pull up. Oops. Okay, there we go. Okay, so if you want to hand in assignments, there are multiple ways to hand in assignments, okay? First, if you've got a learning center, the person in charge of the learning center, we call them a DEC. You can bring it to them. They have a scanner. You can ask them to scan it in and send it to me. Hang on to your originals. Don't leave them with the DEC, okay? You can fax it, but our fax machine is not on 24/7. I think we turn it on like Friday to do some stuff. So if you're planning to fax it, let me know so I can go over and turn it on and receive it, okay? You can scan it yourself using a scanner app on the phone, which I will show you how to do in a minute. You can mail it to me, but I strongly discourage you from it. Besides the fact that there's sometimes postal strikes, things do get lost in the mail, and there's nothing worse than losing, 20 or 30 hours worth of work because it got lost. Some people, like I said, like to share documents with me through Google Docs. That's fine. Just give me a heads up that you're doing it. Don't just stick it in the file and not let me know. You have to tell me, okay? And some people hand in assignments by photograph. They take a little picture with their phone and then send it to me through Facebook or email. Now, if you do that, you have to take the picture carefully. It's got to be clear. It cannot be blurry. Preferably, you've done your assignment in pen so it's dark enough for me to read. Often, pencil doesn't show up very well. Make sure the phone is directly above the assignment so the writing doesn't get distorted. And please do not just click the share button. When you do that, it will come up as a very odd size on the computer, okay? Don't cut and paste it into the body of the email. It's very hard for me to print off properly. Instead, okay, so see if you take a picture, it'll say send as an attachment. That's the way you always want to do it. It just comes up in a way that it's way easier for me to play with and get it printed off properly. The other thing is only take a picture of one page at a time. Sometimes people will do like 2 pages in a notebook and then try and take a page of both at once. What I find happens is the quality of the resolution isn't very good, and when I try and zoom in, it falls apart. I can't read it. So only take a picture of one page at a time so I can read it, okay? Now, scanning produces a much better quality document, and it's really easy to download a scan app onto your phone. I use Adobe Scan. It's free. It's really easy. Here's a little poster of what you do. Once you've installed it, you open it up, you take your picture. You can kind of play around with these dots and get the border right where you want it. Then you just keep on scanning pages over and over until you've got everything done and hit continue. Then before you hand it in, it will let you preview. Make sure the pictures are clear. Sometimes things happen. You were standing in a shadow or you were standing in front of the window and all of a sudden part of it is whited out. Try to make sure I can see everything because I can't mark it if I can't see it. And I will just send it back to you and say, sorry, I couldn't read it. Hit Save PDF, give it a name. Generally, I name the course and the assignment number, like OLC40, assignment number 10, because that way you can find it, especially if you do a lot of courses with us, all right? Okay, on-air protocol. If you do join a class on Zoom, please keep in mind that we are also on the radio. So it isn't just like being in a classroom where you can kind of say a little bit every way you want, and the worst that happens is you get a detention. If you say something really inappropriate here, it's going out to everybody who listens to our radio station, which is not only Sioux Lookout, but all the reserves. So that can cause a lot of problems. You want to make sure you're listening, that you participate if questions are being asked. Try to study the material, don't get distracted. Don't be using the internet unless it's part of the work. Work on the current assignments. Use polite language, okay? We don't swear or curse on the radio. It's not considered appropriate, and there are, in fact, laws against it. If you're leaving the room, just let me know, because if I think you're there and I'm talking to you, I'm going to wonder why you're not answering me back, okay? If you don't know the question, or don't understand the question, or don't have an answer, it's totally fine to say, I'm sorry, I don't know, or could you explain the question, or I need some time to think about it. Anything like that is fine, okay? But please don't just stay quiet, because then I'm not sure, did they hear me, or what's happening? Oh, also keep in mind, you don't want to share personal information in this format, because again, it goes out over the radio. I also record these and they go onto YouTube. So anything you say will then be on YouTube. I don't have any easy way to edit it out, okay? Please be careful with that. Okay, expectations for writing. Remember that this course is not like doing Facebook. Okay, so there is a higher level of expectations of what you're going to aim for with your writing. Okay, it's a really important part, especially for English and especially for this course, because this is the course where I sign off that, yep, you are ready and capable of doing high school level work. If I don't feel that that's the case, I can't pass you. Okay? Keep in mind too, spoken language and written language are not the same. When we're just talking to our friends or even talking to at work to our colleagues, we don't necessarily speak in 100% perfect English with perfectly complete sentences because we're going back and forth. We use our face and our voice, our body gestures to help fill in the gaps in the meaning so that your listener can understand the message and how you feel about it. But when you're writing, the other person can't hear your voice to tell, are you mad? Are you happy? What's going on? They can't necessarily understand things as well as when you're right there in person. So it means that when we're writing, we have to be a little more detailed in explaining our ideas. The other thing is keep in mind that sometimes we use a lot of slang in our communities, or if you're very young, you might have a lot of jargon that's kind of only used by people in that like 5 or 10 year age gap. Those aren't what you're going to want to use for an assignment that you're handing in to me for English, okay? As well, Facebook's kind of encouraged a lot of emojis. Please don't use emojis. And a lot of little short forms like LOL or you or the number four for the word for. And those are totally fine when you're talking to your friends on Facebook, but they're not considered appropriate for an academic piece of writing. So I expect you to avoid them. And if there's too many of them, I will ask you to redo an assignment. Okay? Um, so computers, we've talked about this already. I don't need to worry about that. If you are handwriting, please make sure you are writing neatly. Okay? Sometimes when it's talking about a rough copy, students get the idea that that means they need to be messy or something. No, no, I have to be able to read it. There's nothing worse than somebody handing me in 2 pages and it looks like it's really great, but I can't tell what they've written. Also, when I say handwriting, it doesn't have to be cursive. Like if you normally print like I do, that's totally fine. You can hand it in printed. It does not need to be cursive. That's not what I mean. I just mean handwriting versus computer. That's all I'm trying to say. Um, we've already talked about facts. Oh, even in your written stuff, obviously use appropriate language, okay? We don't use words that are vulgar or obscene. Um, if it's something that you wouldn't say to your grandma, then you probably wouldn't want to say it in your assignments, okay? Makes sense? Okay, if you've never joined a radio Zoom class, um, there is a link provided by the DEC or the teacher. If you send me any kind of an email, I include the link right at the bottom of my email, and you can just click on that. You can also go to joining in and enter my Zoom link. Now this is some other teachers, but mine will say join with computer audio. Please do that so I can hear you. Otherwise, you could be talking, but I wouldn't have any way of knowing it. All right. And then the meeting will be recorded. They're giving you the heads up that it's going to be recorded, and you click got it. If you aren't comfortable with being recorded, you have two choices. One is you don't join the Zoom class. The two is you keep quiet and you can politely say, I don't feel like speaking because I don't want to be on the radio, and that's fine to me. You can also send me a little note on chat. That's fine. Keep in mind, chat also will get recorded and people will see your name. I can't help that. I don't have any way to solve that problem. Sorry. On the bottom left-hand side of the screen, there is the microphone and there is the video. It is totally fine to turn off the video, and that's not going to bother me. And it's totally fine to turn off your mic and just turn it on when you need it. In fact, I advise you to do that because if there's people in the background, everybody will hear them. Okay? Again, anything that goes on, including private chats that you have with other people, are recorded. Even if you had it on private and I don't hear it while we're doing it, it will show up later when I see the recording. I don't want you to be embarrassed or to accidentally have insulted somebody and not realize that people were going to be aware of it. So I just want people to be aware that that happens, okay? Okay, moving on and talking about learning skills. Okay, learning skills are one of these things that we report on the report card, but it doesn't get a numeric grade. And I'm going to say something funny, like on the one hand, it doesn't affect your marks. On the other hand, it kind of does. If you're terrible at learning skills, it's going to be really hard to get good marks. If you're struggling with the course and you're not sure why, I would check the learning skills and habits and see. So there's only 4 categories there. Needs improvement, which means obviously it needs improvement. Satisfactory means you're doing okay. It's not great, but it's okay. Good is what I would consider like a B level. Like, okay, yep, you're doing fairly well with that. Excellent, you're above and beyond. I'm not worried about your skills at all in that. These are the learning skills. This is from a government document called, I think, Growing Success. And it is the learning skills that we are required to mark on. This is an Ontario-wide expectation. This is not just a WASA thing. It is on any Ontario high school report card. So we look at responsibility. Does the student fulfill their responsibilities and their commitments within the learning environment? Do they complete their classwork, homework, and assignments? Do they take responsibility for and manage their own behavior? Obviously, behavior is not as big an issue when we're working independently. Organization. Do you devise and follow a plan for completing your work and your tasks? So that kind of organizing is like organizing your time. Same thing with establishing priorities and managing your time to complete tasks and achieve goals. Identifying, gathering, evaluating, and using information, technology, and resources to complete tasks. Independent work. A student independently monitors, assesses, and revises plans to complete tasks and meet goals, uses class time appropriately to complete tasks, and follows instructions with minimal supervision. This is the one area where I want people to be aware. I'm not worried about this one. Don't get concerned that you have to be independent so that you're afraid to call me. If you need to call me for every single assignment, that is totally fine. I absolutely have students who do that. I have students who talk to me 3 or 4 days a week. That's fine. I have no problem with that. Other people are totally confident and don't feel like they need to talk to me at all. That's fine too. So that is the one learning habit I'm not going to worry about so much. If you're in a classroom and you have 30 students and every student refused to work unless I was standing right next to them, that's a problem. But for the kind of learning we do, it's not as big an issue. Collaboration. In all honesty, I wish I could cross this one off because we're not really doing any kind of group work or partner work because everybody is starting and stopping at a different time. So when I'm looking at collaboration, I'm really looking for more like things like, do you call and talk to me if there's a problem? Do you communicate issues to your DEC if there's a problem? Are you willing to work with the tutor in your learning center if there is a tutor? All those kind of things. Sending me emails, sending me Facebooks, anything where you're keeping a conversation going is what I'm looking for there. Initiative is kind of a funny one. It's sort of the idea of demonstrating curiosity, being invested in your own learning, having a positive attitude towards learning, willingness to take risks. Sometimes people are like, well, I don't know how to do this and I don't want to try. Unfortunately, the only way to grow and learn new things is to take those risks. And then recognizes and advocates appropriately for the rights of self and others. Again, that is one that is kind of more of an issue in a regular classroom, but it is still an issue in independent learning. Sometimes I've had students call me to say, hey, I need you to know this and this about something that's happened to me, like I broke my arm, and so I'm not going to be able to do this certain thing. Or, hey, I feel like this assignment is unfair because of this and this, and I can listen and talk to you. So by all means, call and talk to me about things, okay? And then self-regulation. Again, this is one I think is more of an issue in a regular classroom, but they also have setting your individual goals, monitoring your own progress, seeking clarification or help when you need to, assessing and reflecting critically on your own strengths, needs, and interests, which we do a lot in this course, identify learning opportunities, choices, and strategies to meet your personal needs and achieve your goals, and perseveres and makes an effort when responding to challenges. Okay. Now, I also have like a little rubric where for responsibility, here are the main things I'm looking for. Um, uh, Needs improvement, satisfactory, good, or excellent. Um, and then over here, again, collaboration is one I don't worry that much about. I do encourage you to call me if you can, but um, the truth is you could do this entire course without ever once speaking to me. For the most part, I'm supposed to be including some oral assignments as per Ministry of Education, so that might change, but it's fine. All right, plagiarism. Oh, my least favorite topic. Plagiarism is a really serious offense. Essentially, it's academic cheating, okay? Plagiarism occurs when a student borrows words or ideas or an entire document from a source without giving credit to the source. If you submit another person's work as your own, or if you just copy and paste things from the internet without crediting the source, or even if you just copy your answer directly from the textbook, that is considered plagiarizing. Now, we don't have a textbook in our course, but you know what I mean. If you're not sure, like if you've done something and you're like, hey, I'm not sure, send it to me and say, hey, here's what I want to know. Does this count as plagiarism or does it not? So I won't ding you down for that because you're asking me. That's totally fine. Please be aware, students are not allowed to use ChatGPT or other AI to do the assignments for this course. This course is essentially testing your literacy skills, so those are not an option. If I have concerns about an assignment that I believe has been plagiarized, then I will be discussing it with my principal and we will discuss whatever appropriate consequences may be applied. Now, when I'm saying you don't use AI, it's fine to use your computer's spell check or grammar. I'm not worried about that, okay? I would avoid Grammarly. I know it's really popular, but sometimes if you use Grammarly, it will show up as being AI because technically Grammarly is a type of AI. So I kind of would suggest avoiding it because it can kind of accidentally trigger things that you don't want to trigger. With spell check, keep in mind it doesn't always recognize Canadian spelling of words, and I find it will sometimes flag words and say they're misspelled when they're not. It's just not how they would say it in the States. The other thing is spell check will not always point out words that are spelled correctly, but maybe not the word you intended. There's also words that sound the same or very similar, but they have different meanings like affect or effect. Because both those words exist and are real words, it won't tell you it's a spelling mistake, okay? So keep in mind that spell check won't solve everything, okay? Marking and assessment. Okay, assignments get marked a variety of ways. Sometimes there's checklist or observations, rubrics, oral discussion, or other ways. We don't do a lot of oral discussion in this course, unfortunately. In Ontario, all coursework expectations, and actually the exam and stuff as well, are considered to fall into four main categories of thinking, essentially. So one is your knowledge and your understanding. Like, do you know those concepts? Do you understand what you read? Number two is thinking and inquiry. Inquiry is a fancy way for like research. Thinking is like, your critical thinking processes, your creative thinking when you're doing writing, those kind of ideas. Communication skills is, for this course, mostly focused on how well you write and explain your ideas. And then application can be several things. It can be how do you apply reading strategies? How do you apply writing strategies? How do you apply your understanding of language conventions like spelling, grammar, etc.? So you won't see this on everything, but you will see it a lot on marking rubrics. And the reason they have these categories is sometimes some teachers can get overly reliant on having students memorize everything, right? It was kind of more a problem when I was a kid. But they want to make sure that teachers are also checking on how students communicate, how they think, and how they apply their knowledge. So that's why we have it split up that way. So these general categories, by the way, they apply to all courses, not just English. But of course, how they get interpreted is a little bit different in each course. Okay, So this is directly from the document about the Ontario Secondary School Literacy course. You see this part in gray? That it means you didn't pass. Okay? What we're wanting to get, well, anything above 50 is a pass, but I would hope that you get between the 65 and 79. That's what we're aiming for. Understanding things like knowledge of the forms of text, reading or understanding the text that you read, knowledge of strategies, processes, and conventions, understanding the importance of reading and writing skills, thinking and inquiry. This is things like in reading, making inferences, making connections, integrating your personal knowledge to extend meaning. In writing, developing your ideas, selecting details, evaluating what you're reading, evaluating your own writing, organizing stuff, explaining stuff, forming conclusions, and also your own self-assessment skills, which comes up a lot in this course. Setting goals for how you can improve, reflecting on whether you have improved, being able to recognize your own strengths and weaknesses. Okay. Then we have communication. Communicating your ideas and information, communicating for different audiences and for different purposes. Like if you're writing an article on lions, you're going to write it very differently if you're writing to a 5-year-old than if you're writing to a teenager, than if you're writing to a zookeeper who knows everything about it, right? You're going to have a whole bunch of different information and probably a different level of language. Use of various forms of communication. So this is talking about your ability to write many different formats. So sometimes people are very comfortable writing, say, journals, but they're not really very comfortable writing a fictional story. Or they can write an opinion piece, but not a news story. Ideally, for this course, we want you to become comfortable with doing a wide variety of writing. And then application, language conventions. This is the most common one I check, okay? And then reading strategies, applying writing processes, and applying literacy skills in new contexts. So say you already know how to write a journal, great. Can you now use those same skills to write a biography, for example? It's going to use a lot of similar skills, but it's a new context. That's kind of what they're talking about there. Okay, report cards. Unlike in a regular school, report cards do not come out twice a year. They only come out once at the end of the course. The end of the course is when you tell me I'm done handing things in. Okay? There are 2 important types of marks in the report card. One is your final grade, and that's based on the assignments and culminating activities, including any oral conversations that we have. And then the other part is the learning habits that we talked about already. Oh, we just did this. How come I ended up there twice? Oh, not sure. Okay. So, this coursework is weighted. And what that means is each type of work that we do can only count for a certain percent of the course. And so it wouldn't be fair if I made the final exam count for 80% of the course, because it would be putting too much weight on that one activity. And if you did poorly at tests, then you might fail a course even when you understood everything. So this is a typical way of distributing the work. The coursework, all the work from units 1 to 4 is worth 70%. The portfolio that we do at the end is worth 10%. The final culminating activity is worth 20%. And if you got perfect on everything, that's 100%. The numerals look like 70, 10, 20, and 100. Now, most people, I'd say almost nobody gets perfect in English. Here's an example of what it might look like with different marks. Let's say in the coursework, you currently are running a 65%. 70% of that equals 45.5. Great. For the portfolio, you got 80%. Woohoo! But keep in mind, the portfolio is only worth 10%, so that's only actually 8 marks. And then for the final activity, you didn't do great. You got 58%. But you know what? It's only worth 20%, so it didn't really impact your mark too much. That's worth 11.6. Now, I add these numbers up, and I get 65.1. I round up or down depending on what's appropriate. You got 65%. And I'm saying this because sometimes what people will do is they'll add all these numbers up and like divide them by 3, and you would get a very different mark then. So you have to be aware that it is weighted. It really affects things. Sometimes I will have students who are like, oh, well, I've got 65% in the course, and then they just assume that that means they've got 65% overall. But those last two big assignments have a huge effect on your mark. So please don't skip them. You can see right here, this person didn't pass. If they didn't do the final 2 assignments, they didn't pass. Okay? One more note on getting good grades. A lot of assignments will ask you to hand in a rough copy and a good copy. And a lot of students don't like doing that, and they just don't hand me in the rough copy. But because the rough copy is worth at least half the marks, when you don't hand it in, that can have a huge impact on your marks. So here's an example. The person handed me in the rough copy, they got 6 out of 10. The good copy, they got 7 out of 10. Their overall grade for that assignment was 13 out of 20, and that means they got 65% for that assignment. This student didn't hand me in a rough copy, so they got 0. They got 7 out of 10 for the good copy. That means they got 7 out of 20 overall, which means they failed the assignment. So sometimes people are like, well, just count it as the good copy and the rough copy. But I can't. You didn't hand them in both. So you have to hand them in if it's required. Now, not every single assignment asks for that. But if it does, you have to hand it in. The other big thing is the portfolio. A lot of people want to skip the portfolio because they think it's too much work. Here's an example. 38 plus 8 plus 10. This person passed the course. Sorry, there should be a number here that disappeared. I'm not sure where it went to. 38 plus 0 plus 10. This person didn't pass the course. And the only difference is that one assignment. Because it's worth 10% of your grade, it's a huge impact on your marks. Okay, so please don't skip it. I know so many students don't like to do it. Okay, here is a quick look at what we're going to be doing over the next few weeks. Unit 1, our big focus is on grammar, goal setting, and narrative texts. Unit 2, we really focus on information text, nonfiction reading strategies, and beginning to learn how to use the writing process. Unit 3, we look at graphic texts, business documents, and other types of writing. And then Unit 4, we review and show mastery of all the different text types. Hang on. For reading and writing. Okay. Where is things? Okay, so that more or less ends the study guide. We're almost out of time, so I'm going to talk about it here. Keep in mind that, like I said, this is the revised version of the course. The previous version is still being revised, and that's fine. I'll totally accept it. But if you're like watching some of these classes and going, hey, that doesn't match up to what I've got, that's fine. Just go to last year's playlist and watch those classes instead. So for example, if you go to my my YouTube channel, G. Percy Wassa, and you go to playlists, my very first playlist there right now is Term 2B OLC40. And then you can see 24-25. Now, once I start loading classes up, it'll become my second playlist. But that is what you would click on if you want to see last year's stuff. And see how there's a little turtle on there? That kind of shows you which one you're looking at, because I try and change those pictures every year, so it kind of is a quick heads up as to which one you've got. All right. The other way you can check is there is a Wassa Distance Education Center YouTube channel, which should have the current classes. I don't know for sure if they're going to be having last year's classes on there as well. I hope so. Now, when I was looking for this earlier, I had trouble finding it, and the reason was I forgot and spelled center the American way with an ER instead of RE. If you spell it that way, it doesn't show up in the feed, okay? So make sure you spell it correctly or you won't be able to find it. Okay, and then this is what Unit 1 looks like. Unit 1 is tools for reading and writing. Okay. This course is designed to help you acquire and demonstrate the cross-curricular literacy skills that are evaluated by the Ontario Secondary Skill Literacy Test. Oh, we talked about this part already. Don't continue this course if you've already passed the Ontario Literacy Test. This doesn't happen often, but every now and again we have younger students who, like were still in school last year. If you did that test and you already passed it, don't continue with the course because it doesn't count as a credit if you've already got the test, okay? So call us and let us know if that happens. In this course, you're going to read a variety of informational, narrative, and graphic texts and practice different techniques for understanding these texts. You will also produce a variety of forms of writing, including summaries, information paragraphs, news report, and opinion pieces. For your final evaluation, you're going to have to manage and maintain a portfolio, including a record of your reading and writing experiences. There are 4 units to this course, and there are 5 lessons in each. Generally, there are 20 lessons, key lessons that count for marks, including their portfolio. And we'll talk a little bit more, but there are 2 different types of questions: support questions and key questions. Just in case anyone's getting started today, the support questions do not count for marks and normally do not have to be handed in. Once or twice I ask for them to be handed in because I want to see something, but normally they do not count for marks. The key questions are what I'm using to evaluate you, okay? So I am running over time and someone else is going to be here soon. I will be back tomorrow and we'll be talking about Lesson 1, Unit 1. Have a good night, and by all means send me an email if you need to, and I can get back to you.